It's time to make it, just give it a try. 'Cause you can make it like the old fat guy.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of You Can Make It with David Farrell, the old fat guy. Today we're going to make something really tasty, which is cheese muffins. Cheese muffins are great for breakfast, they're good for a snack, but they're going to be different than what muffins seem to have become these days, which is great big huge things that are cake-like and really sweet. This is going to be a savory muffin with some cheese in it, and it's going to be small with a wonderful chew. That being said, let's get in and make some muffins. It's really easy. We'll start off with 500 milliliters or 2 cups of all-purpose flour. Now when you measure flour, make sure you sift it first and then level it off or you'll get too much flour. And adding to that 15 milliliters or a tablespoon of baking powder, 15 milliliters or a tablespoon of sugar, and 5 milliliters or a teaspoon of salt. And we're just going to add that into our flour. And we want to mix it up. So you want to get all the dry ingredients mixed up first, which is quite common when making muffins. And of course you want to make a mess. I'm good at messes. My wife will tell you. Okay, now we're just going to set that aside and we've got to do our liquid ingredients. And we'll start off with 2 eggs that we're just going to give a little beat to break them up. And you can use a whisk, but I find a little rotary mixture does it fast as anything. We'll just set that aside for a second. To that we're going to add 250 milliliters or 1 cup of milk. And we're also going to add to it 50 milliliters or 1/4 cup of melted butter. And once again, we just want to try and give it a little bit of a beat to get it all mixed up. There we go. So now that we have our liquid ingredients mixed up, what are you going to put in cheese muffins but cheese? So I've got here 175 milliliters or 3/4 cup of sharp cheddar cheese. You don't want to put too much cheese in. It's not supposed to be really cheesy. It's just supposed to have a slight savory taste. So we just toss that in to our flour. And you want to stir it so the flour coats the cheese. That way it melts more evenly through the muffins. Okay, now that you've got the dry ingredients and the cheese mixed together, just form a well in it like that. And pour the liquid ingredients in all at once. Now, some of the butter will tend to cool down and stick to the side. Make sure you scrape it in. There we go. So, we're just going to mix this very slowly because we don't want to slop it up. Now, it's important you don't overmix or it'll get tough muffins from it. You just want to mix it until it's all totally combined. There we go. And don't worry about a few lumps. They'll be fine. It's more important to just have it moistened and not to stir it too much. There, you can still see some dry parts, so there we go. It's all moistened now. So we're just going to get 12 muffin cups out. And here perhaps you can help me out. I've always wondered, why do they give us recipes that make 12 muffins and pans that make 8 muffins? I've never figured it out. If you know, let me know. So we're just going to divide the batter here out amongst 12 of these muffin tins. I sprayed these with baking spray before I put the batter in. Now you'll note they're not all very even. I got a bit more in that one, so we'll add it to one that has less. Don't worry about getting it perfect. You just want them kind of evened out. There we go. Maybe a little bit more out of this one into that one. So now that we've got them in the muffin pans, I'd preheated my oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. And I'm just going to put this in the oven for 20 minutes and we'll have some delicious cheese muffins. Give me a moment. The muffins have come out of the oven, took exactly 20 minutes. They're cooked perfectly, and I let them cool for 5 minutes because they just come out of the pan a bit easier if you let them have some cooling time. So here we have some cooked muffins. Of course, it's time to taste it. And I do like a bit of butter on my muffin, and they're still warm, so this should be perfect. And you see how soft and tender the inside is and crispy the outside is? That's because we didn't overmix. So we'll just give it a bit of butter. And we'll try a muffin. This is what I remember muffins as. They're so tender. They have a really nice savory taste. A little touch of the cheese, not too sweet. Just perfect for your morning breakfast or coffee. So remember, cheese muffins are delicious and you can make it.
In this recipe, David made cheese muffins. The ingredients used were 500 milliliters of all-purpose flour, 15 milliliters of baking powder, 15 milliliters of sugar, 5 milliliters of salt, 2 eggs, 250 milliliters of milk, 50 milliliters of melted butter, and 175 milliliters of grated sharp cheddar cheese. For the complete recipe, visit David's blog at oldfatguy.ca.
It's time to make it, just give it a try. 'Cause you can make it like the old fat guy.
Welcome to another segment of You Can Make It with David Farrell, the old fat guy. Thanks for tuning in today. We're going to make something that is really tasty. It's a broccoli salad. I will confess something. I don't like broccoli. I don't like feta cheese, and this recipe has broccoli and feta cheese in it. But now I like broccoli and feta cheese just because of this recipe. It is so tasty, and if you think you don't like broccoli, you got to try this. It will convert you. It's ultra easy to make, and it's perfect for potlucks, dinners, anything like that. All you have to do is start off with some broccoli florets. That's just some broccoli I've taken and I've cut the flowers off of it and I've roughly chopped them. And I've got 3 cups of roughly chopped broccoli florets here, 750 milliliters. Just put those in a bowl. And then we're going to add 125 milliliters of chopped up red onion. Now you can use white onion. Red onion just gives you a better color and appearance. And I have as well 125 milliliters or a half a cup of raisins that I just coarsely chopped to make them a bit smaller. And 50 milliliters or a quarter of a cup of sunflower seeds that we'll just add in there. And then you'll need 125 milliliters or half a cup of feta cheese, or you can use any creamy goat cheese that you like, but you want that creamy chèvre type taste to it. And you're just going to crumble that over the broccoli. Don't worry about getting it too small. It will break up when you mix it. So now that we've got it all broken up, we'll stir it in. And just try and break it up a bit while you're stirring that cheese around. And when the cheese is mostly in small pieces, that's all the mixing you need to do. Now, any good salad, of course, needs a sauce. And we're going to do a low-fat, creamy sauce for this just because my wife is trying to keep me healthy. So I'm going to use some low-fat ingredients. So I'm just going to bring over a bowl with 125 milliliters of low-fat yogurt, and I'm going to add to that 50 milliliters of low-fat mayonnaise. And the next addition is going to be 15 milliliters or a tablespoon of lemon juice. And 25 milliliters or 2 tablespoons of sugar. Now that sounds like quite a lot, but because it's low fat, you need something to still make it feel good in your mouth. So you just add that to the ingredients and mix them up. Into a sauce. There we go. And then we'll want to add the sauce to the broccoli mixture. There we are. And just stir it to coat. What you're trying to do is just get an even layer of the sauce over all the broccoli. And there, now that it's nicely coated, this is going to go in the fridge for 2 hours at least, and go for 2 hours to overnight to let the flavors kind of meld through the cheese into the sauce and that sort of thing. Our salad has set, so the flavors could meld. Time to taste it. Now, some people like to put salt and pepper in this, and it's a matter of personal taste. I've always found it doesn't need it. There's lots of salt in the cheese, and I don't think you need spicy with the creamy. But it's your taste. If you want to add a bit of salt and pepper, you go ahead. But let's give it a taste. There is such a good contrast between the crunchy broccoli and onions and the creamy cheese. The lemon gives it just a touch of tart. The sugar gives it a touch of sweet. It is fresh, it's full flavored, it is delicious, and you can make it.
In this recipe, David made broccoli salad. The ingredients used were 750 milliliters of coarse chopped broccoli florets, 125 milliliters of chopped red onion, 125 milliliters of chopped raisins, 50 milliliters of sunflower seeds, 125 milliliters of crumbled feta cheese, 125 milliliters of plain low-fat yogurt, 50 milliliters of light mayonnaise, 15 milliliters of lemon juice, and 25 milliliters of sugar. For the complete recipe, visit David's blog at oldfatguy.ca.
It's time to make it, just give it a try. 'Cause you can make it like the old fat guy.
Thanks for tuning into this segment of You Can Make It with David Farrell, the old fat guy. Today I'm going to make my absolute favorite appetizer, which is rib tips. Now, rib tips are made from the rib trimmings when they make spare ribs into St. Louis ribs. So if you go to your supermarket, you'll get ribs one of two ways. They'll either be in a big rack with some cartilage at the top, or they'll be cut into nice ribs, and you'll have pieces like this with cartilage in them and a lot of fat around that are hard to eat because they're crisscrossed with cartilage. They normally trim these off to make the spare ribs, or you trim them off yourself, and this is what you make rib tips out of. So I've cut most of my rib trimmings up, but I'm just going to start cutting these into squares. Now, you'll see there's cartilage, but your knife, a good knife will cut through the cartilage no problem. So you just want to cut it in 1 to 1.5 inch squares. Now, this is normally made in the smoker. It also works just fine if you use a 230 Fahrenheit oven. It just won't have the smoky flavor, but it'll still be sweet and delicious, and you can make them anytime at home, even if you don't have a smoker. So we see it cut right through that cartilage without much problem. And we just need to put it on a plate now because we need to put some barbecue rub on it. So you can see I have about a pound here. This recipe normally calls for about 2 pounds of rib trimmings. For 2 pounds of rib trimmings, you'd put about 25 milliliters or 2 tablespoons of barbecue rub over them. Use any commercial barbecue rub you want. Make your homemade like I did. It doesn't matter. But you want to give it a good sprinkling of barbecue rub. And make sure you get both sides. Now, I've already preheated my smoker to 230 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm using some nice oak wood to make the smoke. You can use any kind that you like. There we go. And we'll just do the other side. I'm going to take these out now and put them in my smoker. So I'm putting my rib tips in my 230 degree Fahrenheit smoker where they're going to sit and get a nice smoke flavor over the next 3 hours. I already have some up top here that have been in for 3 hours, so I can go right inside and show you the next step. The rib tips have been out in the smoker for 3 hours, and they've gotten a nice red color, and they're now totally cooked and got some smoke flavor, but they're still tough and got a lot of fat in them. To cure that, what we're going to do is cook them in some moist heat, and we're going to add some apple juice. So just put them in a roasting pan. I've got a pound here, so I used half a cup. If you've got a kilogram or 2 pounds, you'd use about a cup of apple juice. You just want it to cover the bottom of your roasting pan. And then you want to cover it with foil. That'll keep the steam in and let you have a nice tender rib. Now, this could go back out in the smoker at 230 degrees, but smokers are expensive to run. Ovens are much cheaper. It has foil on it and no more smoke's going to get on the ribs. So unless it's a hot day and you don't want to heat up the kitchen, you can just put this in a 230 degree oven or back in the smoker at 230 degrees. It's going to go for 2 hours to just tender the ribs up. The rib tips have been cooking in the apple juice and covered by foil for 2 hours. Now I'm going to tell you about a little trick. If you were going to be using the rib tips right out of the oven and cooking them right away for your appetizer, you would brush them with barbecue sauce, put them back in 230 degrees Fahrenheit for 30 minutes, brush them with barbecue sauce a second time, and give them another 30 minutes. But what you can do is let them cool down. I actually cooked these rib tips yesterday and let them cool overnight. You can even freeze them for use in the future, but then you have to take them out and let them thaw. But if you're cooking from cold, what you're going to do is you're going to brush them with barbecue sauce, and you're going to cook them for 40 minutes. You're going to turn them, give them another brush with barbecue sauce, and cook for another 40 minutes, and they'll be ready. You just want to make sure you get both sides. And there we go. So these will go into the 230-degree oven or smoker as you prefer for 40 minutes, get turned, brushed, and turned again for another 40 minutes, a total of an hour and 20 minutes. Then they'll be ready to eat. If they were hot, it'd be 30 minutes, brushed, and then 30. So I'm just going to put these in my oven. These rib tips were done from hot, so I brushed them with the barbecue sauce, put them in the oven for 30 minutes, brushed them again and turned them over, and now they're ready to eat. You'll see they got a beautiful, nice dark color to them, real sheen. They're going to be delicious, I just know it, but let's prove that. They're so moist. They've got a real great sweetness from the barbecue sauce and the apple juice. They're so tender, they just pull off of the cartilage pieces. They're absolutely delicious. This is a great appetizer, and you can make it.
In this recipe, David made rib tips. The ingredients used were 1 kilogram of rib trimmings, 25 milliliters of barbecue rub, 250 milliliters of apple juice, and 150 milliliters of barbecue sauce. For the complete recipe, visit David's blog at oldfatguy.ca.